Again, that's a number that you all can change if you want more multiple message billboards, but as it is now, they have to replace 2.5 billboards with one multiple message billboard. And this was a number that the billboard companies were fine with. I think they might have even suggested that number, but they had no complaint about it. There is a number on multiple message signs. Now these are the smaller signs like CVS or Backwoods Outdoors that are changeable copy signs, electronic signs. There is a number for that. We chose the number 20. Originally when this was written, when you saw it last, I think it was 35. Now, this is another number that's up to you all, but my opinion on this is that these signs are not really in character of Lee County. That's my opinion. And I think that 20 will give you the chance to see if you like them. If you like them at 20, it's easy enough to change that number to 30, to 40, whatever you choose. If you want to change that number, it's a lot easier to change it to a higher number once you realize that, hey, we like these signs. But if you have it at 35 and you think they're the worst thing in the world, and you get to 35, every one of those 35 is allowed. So I would rather personally have the number low with the option always to amend your ordinance and allow more in. But that's up to you all. And the way it's written, there are only 20 new ones allowed, and 20 total allowed. There's already a number of them in the county, so it doesn't allow 20 new ones, it allows 20 total. And they can only change once every 20 seconds. These have been shown to be a nuisance and a distraction from travel. They're going to be primarily put on Highway 19, that's the commercial strip where businesses would want to put them. It's already a street with some traffic issues, and I think, personally, I think that it would be best that if they're not changing more rapidly than at least 10 seconds, we'd have 20 in the ordinance. Okay. On the illuminated signs, one last thing, are multiple message signs. Gas station signs are technically multiple message signs, but we have written in the ordinance that those are exempt. So any gas station price sign is exempt from that number of multiple message signs. Gas stations also, from time to time, have multiple message signs advertising products that they're selling. That's not what we're talking about, just the price signs. The next section that's both different from your old ordinance and different from the one we submitted before is about flags. This is right after the illuminated or multiple message signs. We went through a variety of different options, and what this ordinance stands at is there's no regulation over flags in residential areas at all. In commercially and industrially zoned areas, there are only 3 flags permitted per lot. And then there's regulations of the height and the size of the flag. Okay, now I mentioned that let me go, before I get to, there's section 70647, prohibited signs. Your copy does not say this because apparently we did not make this change, but Planning Commission and everyone to this point recommended that rotating signs exempt barber poles. So I'm telling you all now, that's what it should say, exempting barber poles. They would be allowed. Don't have any in the county now, but if someone wants to put in an old-fashioned barber pole, this ordinance would allow it. Okay, the amortization of signs. There are 2 areas where this ordinance recommends that non-conforming signs will have to be removed. The first is under 7645, the very last item, 6, portable signs. Portable signs are, it says signs such signs include, but are not limited to, printed banners or billboards attached to vehicles or trailers. These signs, 7645 and number 6, these signs are allowed to remain in effect a year from the effective date of this ordinance. But after that, portable signs are no longer allowed in the county. Now that doesn't include, some businesses have, like on this display board here that you see, some businesses have vehicles that they use for their business. Now this one is probably questionable because it doesn't look like that banner would actually stay on the vehicle if you were to drive the vehicle. But for illustration purposes, if that were a paint a parking place, it would be allowed to remain. So there's a drugstore on 19, I know, that has delivery vehicles that have their logo on it, they park it in a parking space, that's fine. Those won't be regulated. But now that, probably technically the way the ordinance is written is, I think it looks like a sheet of cloth or fabric hung on so that is a portable sign, according to this ordinance. It could be made to be a legal sign fairly easily, but as the ordinance states now, they could have that for a year more, and then after that, they would no longer be able to use that form of advertising. The second form of advertising that has a year, according to this ordinance, will be excess ground signs. And Marshall Wilcox took pictures of several signs within the county that these are not built to the code, the new code. And there was some question as to whether they were even built to the existing code, because businesses are allowed one ground sign. You can see with the flash booths, it has 2 ground signs. And what the ordinance is recommending, and this is the, let's say, worst case scenario. There's been some question about who's going to pay for these signs to be removed. This is probably the most expensive one in the county, or the one that costs the most to construct. The other ones are fairly simple comparatively. But now this sign, the brick sign you see, well, they really have the choice of either, but I imagine they would take the brick sign. They are allowed 1 sign, and they have 2. And I probably actually have 3, because there's that paper sign on the leg of the ground sign as well. But the ordinance is recommending that, because when we drove the county and looked at signs that didn't conform to the regulations of the new ordinance, what we saw as being an issue more than signs that were too big was too many ground signs. And too many ground signs really have the effect of cluttering up the county, making sight lines difficult, making your view look cluttered. I can't think of a more appropriate word than cluttered. That the sign that's 10 feet over the size, you don't even notice that, but when you have too many ground signs, or a ground sign in front of another, it starts to look junky. And that was what we saw the issue be. So Marshall has some other pictures of excess ground signs that we saw throughout the county.
So on that one there, before you change it, you got the big sign, you got the brick sign. Is that cigarette advertisement or whatever that is that also a sign, and is it illegal?
I would think technically it is, because it's attached to the ground sign, although it's a temporary, I believe it's a paper sign, so I'm not sure how we would. I would say just, well, forgive me for giving you a wishy-washy answer, but I really want to read the ordinance to tell you exactly how it was regulated. But since it's attached to a ground sign, I think it's part of that ground sign. So the ground signs have a certain amount of square footage. Let's just say it's 100 square feet. And it could be that it only has 80, and if that sign brings it up to 90, it could be allowed. But it's sloppily attached. It doesn't add to the character that I think Lee County is wanting.
Let's say it's not attached. Let's say it's on a tripod.
Then it would be
freestanding.
It would not be allowed.
Say it's not attached.
Now, okay, Marshall, go ahead. The next one up. What was this?
An additional ground sign that's on the same one. And it's also the same case for this particular sign. This business, the Chevron on Highway 82, has 2 frontages, one on Fussell Road and one on Highway 82. So they are allowed 2 ground signs, but in this particular case, he's got both ground signs on the Fussell Road facing. It may be something that he just can take this sign within a year's time and relocate it out there to Highway 82 and still have a use for that sign. So the ordinance is not outright eliminating people's signs. They may have other uses or other areas that are commercially zoned in the county where they can put these extra ground signs.
Although in that specific instance, that may be a portable sign, actually, whereas it only has a year according to this ordinance anyway. They couldn't actually move it to the other frontage. But Marshall is right. If they do have 2 double frontages, it's not like they're going to be out there at complete investment. And let me also point out that there is an appeal process to this. So if, let's just say, Flash Food, for instance, doesn't like that they have to pull their sign up, they can come appeal to you all and show you that they haven't gotten their economic value out of their sign. And you can grant them an appeal to that. an extension, basically. Not that they can leave it forever, but that they can leave it until the economic life is gone. And this is another good instance of an additional ground sign.
This is an example of an extra ground sign on the lot. And with this particular sign, the extra Edwin's golf sign wasn't ever permitted in the first place. So there's some areas that we will be able to deal with as a code enforcement process. And it's possible he could take this extra sign and mount it to this permanent ground sign, or there again, use it on another commercial property somewhere else in the same area. Perhaps it might say Edwin's Golf next to right. Just maybe so far down the road. So they're not losing their sign. There are other options for them. And there again, like Paul said, there is an appeal process.
So that's a new business, Edwin White's Golf. They just recently come to Lee County.
Yes, sir. There was a different golf shop, I think,
Right.
at that location, and that particular sign was also at that location, but as I point out again, this sign was never permitted in the first place.
Well, actually, they had a problem originally because they opened that business without any signage whatsoever, and I believe we tried to cooperate with them and give them some signage so they
Yes, sir.
welcome to Lee County. Okay. Is that sign legal then?
The second ground sign is no, because
It's
there's
not
never
legal?
any permit issued for the second ground sign.
Okay.
But the sizes, they are less than 100 square feet, so he could incorporate that on the same structure or relocate it.
Okay.
And those are the major changes of the ordinance from the last one you looked at. Marshall, did you have anything else to?
I had just one more.
Okay. I'll do it.
This is an example of some signs that are legally located off the right-of-way that would be permissible under this ordinance now. And here are these top two, or in the bottom corner, are two signs in the right-of-way that would be dealt with as a code enforcement issue. They're subdivision signs, and this is actually a business out on Creekside Drive. And it's in the right-of-way as well. So, of course, then here we have a subdivision entrance sign that will always remain lighted and can be lighted. If someone were to build another subdivision, they could light just their sign. We don't want to have a developer put 1,000 watts of light on their subdivision sign when 100 watts will do just as fine.
Is that Quail Valley sign legal?
Yes. Yes, that was specifically permitted.
Right. And the Quail Chase sign is
Yes,
also
sir.
legal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And those will remain legal through the new ordinance because working with developers, we wanted to make sure that what they were putting out, especially the nicer ones, met the requirements of the new ordinance. That's all I have.